So hopefully everyone can hear me. I'll try to project. Can you hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. So I just want to get an idea of who is from the agency world, if people have worked at startups, if you've been an entrepreneur in the past. So can I get a raise of hands of how many people came from agency creative side? Okay, and how many people came from like high-tech companies or any other corporation? Okay. Be proud of that. Be proud of that. What about startups? Couple? Okay, awesome, awesome. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and then we'll show a video, and then I'll provide some slides about why it's important to have diversity in product development and why it's important to have women, particularly in the innovation space and the technology space. I actually started in public relations and digital agency, so I was working in JWT, Hill & Knowlton in Los Angeles, and I was working in consumer brand marketing for brands like Disney and Mazda and Mattel. So it was a great sort of foundation for me. And then I moved around into entertainment and biotech and healthcare. And then I jumped into tech as soon as I got into San Francisco. So it was right before Web 2.0 started doing really, really well. And everyone in Silicon Valley lives and breathes technology. I mean, they walk in the streets and they talk about fulfilling their dream and what thing they want to produce next and who they want to work with, and it's just in the blood, in the water. So how many of you have actually been to Silicon Valley, San Francisco? Oh, okay, so probably like 30%. What has your experience been? I'm curious.
Amazing, I love it. Like, I feel like everyone's on fire. Just lots of great things.
On fire in a good way. You don't want to extinguish them. No. Well, the good thing is, I think, is there are a lot of similarities from Melbourne to San Francisco and Silicon Valley. I think in coming here and launching Girls in Tech, or trying to find a team to launch the organization here and sort of spread our seed and bring our programming curriculum, a lot of people were sort of asking the same question: why here? Why does Melbourne stand out more than Sydney, more than Auckland or other places in the area? And I would answer, you guys have the right tenets, the right recipe, the right equation for a successful tech and creative ecosystem. So some access to capital, talent, and you have a culture of diversity and working together and collaborating. And I would like to add another thing in there that I've noticed across the board that has been pretty impressive is everyone's really happy. So, you're walking in the street and people are very helpful, want to give directions, and for the most part seem very, very happy. So I think that adds to the resiliency that you need as an entrepreneur to build and grow your startup and attract the right talent. But also if you fail, because we all are going to fail when we start a startup, we need to be we need to pick up our bootstraps and move forward. So we have to have that eternal optimism when building a company. So I actually, when jumping into the San Francisco tech scene, I started working at a company called Gooba, which is much like YouTube and Netflix combined. So it was way before its time. It was premium content and to download and to own, as well as UGC, user-generated content. And I absolutely love this company. It was such a wonderful first experience working at this startup, but there was one major issue. We started with 10 employees and I was the only female, and then we moved to 30, only female, 50, only female. And so I'd go to work every day and look around the room and say, what is wrong with this picture? I'm having so much fun building these products, collaborating, white framing, like it's so pretty. It was just a great experience. It's a wonderful culture because it's flat and everybody treats each other with respect, and you can be creative and try out your new ideas and spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I was so confused as to why more women weren't applying for jobs. We tried different recruiting mechanisms. We tried going to career fairs. We tried posting on job sites, but it was very, very difficult. So I decided to just forget about all of that, forget about the company, and I started Girls in Tech. And it started in 2007 in San Francisco, and it was I had a friend that was a fashion designer that created the logo, and then it was just sort of a networking event. 200 women later, it's now a burgeoning organization with over 58 chapters around the world in 33 countries and in 6 continents. So we've grown pretty fast. There's huge demand both in developed countries as well as developing countries, and we're really trying to bridge the technological divide between what we're building and innovating in Silicon Valley and what people are doing around the world, as well as learn from other marketplaces that we can grow and learn from as well. So with that, I will start with the video and let you guys sort of check out one of our largest events. It's the Catalyst Conference, and we had over 900 people, and this was in Phoenix, Arizona.
You can help influence the beat.
The birth of Girls in Tech is really sort of an inspiration that came from being the only female at a tech company.
If you look at it, when I went to school, we had about 37% of women who were graduating with computer science degrees. Now it's only 12. So I had imagined this world for my daughters that was better than what I had when I grew up. And in fact, it's not better, it's gotten worse.
We try to interview 50% women in technology, which is a very difficult thing to do. And I think there's a few problems. One being, women, female founders getting access to capital.
Did you know that women entrepreneurs are 15% more profitable? 15%. But they are 40% less likely to get funding.
Studies show when women make money, we contribute 25% more back to great causes than our wonderful men.
I believe that you cannot be what you cannot see. It's really hard to break into an industry when there are so few women there leading the way for you.
I think it's really important for those of us who have roles in either venture or as entrepreneurs in the technology sector to really show up, to be visible, to act as mentors.
There's a lot of unique shared wisdom, and especially among women, for the kinds of challenges that we overcome.
Getting exposed to, the tech world, which is the world of the future, is just going to make such a difference. And to see all these inspirational women who have succeeded so much in their fields is just completely mind-boggling.
As women, sometimes we think about what we must do rather than what we'd love to do. And so this is a great opportunity to kind of bring the next generation into that kind of thinking.
One of the things that we need to work on is making sure that the leadership of the tech community is reflective of the diversity that's here. Otherwise, we won't get as much talent in that field as we need.
We really think that empowering women is the most important thing, not only locally but internationally, because when you have a girl and you focus on the girl and empower the girl, then so many things go right. More education, less crime, less violence, and we see that over and over again. And we think that creating an environment where it's okay to learn about STEM and coding and design, it'll enable these women to take the skills and make a societal impact in the world.
So put on your cape and show the world your tech superpower. Because if we see women differently, we see the world differently. If we see women differently, we see the world differently. If we see women differently, we see the world differently. Tech strap.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through some slides really quickly. I wanted to make this more of a discussion and more talk with you and answer any questions that you might have. We are planning on bringing Girls in Tech to Melbourne, as I was saying, and today it was confirmed that the government here will be supporting a Catalyst conference and our Lady Pitch Night and an IoT hackathon. So obviously we'd love to have you involved and help and get you involved in the organization. And that goes for you too, guys. Guys are always invited to our events. It's all inclusive, so you definitely come out and help. So why the world needs more women in tech. So since we're an international organization, we capture statistics and numbers on a global level. And some of the slides that I'll show you next, they're pretty abysmal. Less than 7% of tech positions in Europe are held by women. And this is obviously a very, very low number, but it's not very different in the US, and I'm sure it's pretty similar here. In terms of leadership in tech, this is also extremely low and across the board. So in the States, it's 81%, Europe 11%, Asia 11.5%, and so on and so forth. I think, I'm not sure if you guys have any of the statistics. Do you know what the percentages of leaders, female CEOs in the tech space? No? Yeah, I think it's pretty much across the board in the low teens, and obviously that needs to change. We end up losing 40% of middle career women in tech because they drop out for multiple reasons. They don't want to manage a team, it becomes too difficult, they want to balance having a family and focusing on work, or becoming entrepreneurs. So it becomes very, very challenging for them to balance both work and life. So where are the women? The main issues are these three: gender stereotypes, lack of talent pool, and in-group favoritism. So gender stereotypes start at a very, very young age. So when you're going to preschool and kindergarten and they say, oh no, Sally, you should play with this doll, not play with a truck or play with this airplane, and then it evolves into, no, you should not be in math or science. Oh, you should not play with this computer game. You should just focus on playing with dolls in the sandbox or something. And that is something that society and media and parents and teachers actually train kids at a very, very young age, mostly in our parents' generation and grandparents' generation. And I believe that it's evolving slowly, but it needs to happen at a faster pace. So there's a company called Goldilocks. How many of you have heard of Goldilocks? So Debbie, a friend of mine at Stanford, she created a game, a toy, that enables girls around 6 or 7 years old to think like engineers. So they have these blocks and little trinkets, almost like Legos, that they put together to actually finish a project. So whether it's a car or some kind of structure, and it moves. So it really trains girls at a young age to think like engineers. So we need to stop with the gender stereotypes and empower girls and to jump into the STEM fields and encourage them to get into math and science. Lack of talent pool, because girls tend to not like STEM fields in high school. They tend to not want to get those majors in college. So you see a huge drop-off. A decade ago, there was 36% of women getting CS masters in the United States, and now it's dropped to 12%. So with all the technology and innovation happening, you think it would be the opposite, but it really has decreased tremendously, and we believe it's because of those gender stereotypes. And sort of through word of mouth, people realize that it's still a male-dominated sort of patriarchal environment, and there's still issues in the startup world like sexual harassment and lack of training programs. And in the United States, we don't get pregnant, or women who want to become pregnant only get 3 months off after they have their baby, and there's compensation parity issues, so men still get paid more than women in the United States for doing the same job. So we need to change those. In-group favoritism is basically you always want to work with people that look like you. So if you have more men, then you're going to want to work and you want to trust people that are like you. So whether it's hobbies or things you talk about or things that how you interact, tools that you use, you typically want to be with folks that are more like you. which also happens in the venture capital world, and that's obviously not good. I have an interesting example of this. My best friend from childhood is the only firmware engineer at Tesla, and she experiences this every day. So she doesn't get on certain projects. She has to really speak up and write letters so that she can actually work on the brake or certain parts of Tesla development to help her grow in her career and hopefully so she can get a raise. So this has been an issue for her for all 4 years since she's worked there. So these three things definitely need to shift. So I'll go through these are some statistics. A work culture problem. Possible reasons, obviously the programmer culture, isolation, lack of effective sponsors and role models. Again, more statistics. There are many, many studies and reports that show that if you have female executives at your startup or your company, then you're going to get more funding, you're going to have higher revenue, and if you have women on the board, then you're going to have higher revenues as well. So what's being done? Basically, Girls in Tech, as I mentioned, is created with just a networking event. And that is obviously something that we need. I wanted to bring together like-minded, powerful women who wanted to collaborate, share ideas, empower each other. I know you guys have something called the Tall Puppy. So, is it called Tall Puppy? Oh, okay. This whole time I thought it was like a dog. And I'm like, sure, okay. Okay, and that's obviously, that happens in the U.S. to an extent as well, but with women. And it's called the woman on top syndrome. So when a woman works really, really hard to get to that top level position, she doesn't feel the need to pay it forward anymore to the younger generations. So she gets on top and she's like, no, you do it yourself, ignores them, and then acts differently and almost sabotages other women in the company and their work so that she can look like grandiose and she's the best and all the men love her. And that is a huge problem. And actually, I saw that in some of the agencies I worked at in the past, and that was also something that I was very against. So that is something that we need to really distill that myth and break that down. And some of the things that we've been doing at Girls in Tech is really understanding the ecosystem, the major issues that exist, and putting together our major tenets and then building curriculum. So not just being part of the dialogue, but being part of the solution to create these programs to make a change. So improve education, champion more role models and mentors, challenge negative stereotypes, and strengthen networking and mentoring opportunities. So the Girls in Tech's tagline is basically empowerment, engagement, and education of women in tech. And really we want to focus on building the network, creating educational curriculum, and getting more women in tech. So as entrepreneurs, as intrapreneurs, working at high-tech companies and as in agencies as well, and really hopefully having them someday be so inspired to start their own companies and have the resources to do so. We have chapters, as I mentioned, in 6 continents now. So a lot of what we do is customize our curriculum, our proven curriculum and programming. We bring professors from Stanford, from UC Berkeley, from General Assembly, and we work with them to customize our programs specifically for Girls in Tech members. So we have actually there's 8 programs now, and we're adding a few more at the end of the year. But boot camps are basically like coding hackathons, coding and design and product development workshops. We have soft skill building workshops like confidence and leadership and entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship workshops. Catalyst Conference is the video that you just saw. Our global classroom is an e-learning platform, so we teach women around the world how to design and code websites. Our hackathons, we just had a Super Bowl hackathon, so we had 170 people, guys and girls, come together with ESPN to build apps for the people visiting San Francisco for the Super Bowl. So there's a total of, I believe, 17 apps that were built, so it was a very, very successful event. Our Lady Pitch Night competition, which is now the largest women's business pitch competition in the world. It started in Europe 5 years ago, and now we brought it to the US, and hopefully we'll bring it here, hopefully sometime next year. And we had about 288 applicants in Europe, and the products and the entrepreneurs that come to pitch are amazing. A lot of them actually, probably about 90% of them end up to get funding as a result of that event. So they have international angel investors and VCs come to actually see them pitch. We have our mentorship program, our GIT work, which is basically for university students getting into the field. We help them with negotiation skills, how to find a job, and also there's a third part to it. How to find a job. Anyway, it's on the website. The exchange program, which is actually my favorite program. We bring 20 to 30 entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs to Silicon Valley. And we create an agenda for them to have tours of incubators, agencies, meet with VCs, really just have some fun and social events and things like that to really understand what makes Silicon Valley tick. And we also make a lot of friends. So typically the team that comes, like if we were to do that in Melbourne, they would come and actually interact with our Girls in Tech San Francisco team. And we've done that with a couple other cities as well. So it's worked out really nicely. Do you have any questions about everything so far or the programs? What was that? Seems pretty good. Thumbs up. So this is actually, I read a couple articles about Australia's ICT industry, and it seems like you're doing much better than Germany and Japan and even Silicon Valley. So you're hiring on a faster rate, even though it's 40.7% are more administrative roles, but it's still really, really solid, and you're above 3 really important first world countries, which I think that says a lot. So I think there's a huge opportunity here.